City, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to have y'all here with me today because I am finally pushing some tech content. Today I'm going to give you guys the tea on my tech journey and just all things of how I finally landed my first official job in tech. This is a long overdue video, and when I first started my channel, of course, you often hear me say this is a channel all about tech, fashion, and lifestyle. So if you're new here, go ahead and click that subscribe button. But all things tech, fashion, and lifestyle. And so I really thought that tech was going to be the easy part, and like the fashion and the lifestyle were going to be like more difficult to come to me when it came to this channel. But actually it's been the opposite. And so I just want to make sure that I really am pushing this tech content because it means so much to me, to make sure that other people, specifically black women, are really getting the tea on how to get into tech. And so that's what today's video is going to be all about. It's really just me giving a rundown of my different jobs I've had and different things that I did to finally get to where I am. And before I begin, I really want to emphasize that everyone's journey, everyone's path is so different. I think that there's a lot of value that we can get into listening to each other's journeys and different things that we can take from different people, but ultimately it's going to be our own. And so I suggest you all, if you have not already, to check out my 5 first steps that you should take when you're considering transitioning your career into tech. So I will link it up here. I would love for you all to go check out that video. It's a very insightful, and it will really help you with your soul searching and your initial steps after you decide you want to transition into tech. And it may actually let you evaluate, is tech even for you, right? And so I actually have my notebook here because I did not want to miss out on any step, any detail to tell y'all, because I am 28 years old. I graduated college in 2014, so that was 7 years ago. And so this journey has been, I'm gonna kick it off after I graduated college, and so this is a 7-year journey full of tons of different things. So I'm prone to forget something or miss something, leave something out. So that's why I really wrote it down, because I do not want y'all to miss any of this. Like, I think every step of the way there's some type of value, there's something, even the most unique things, and you're like, what? Like, there's some type of reason God put you in that place, and there's something that you're going to take from there to your ultimate destination, right? So let's get started. And so when I was in college, I went to Xavier University of Louisiana. I majored in biology pre-med, and so my goal was to become some type of physician. And so even thinking back to like my whole college experience and my whole, even when I left high school, it was between 2 schools. It was between Xavier and Texas Southern. Both HBCUs, go HBCU. And it really came down to, if I do Xavier, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna go down that track. If I go to Texas Southern, I'm going to go down a law school track, go to law school. So it was never something where my parents were doctors and I shadowed them while I was a kid, or someone was a lawyer and I always looked up to them. You know how people have those types of stories. It was never that for me. It was really, I'm trying to get to this coin, and the people I see with the coin, the Huxtables, the mama is the lawyer, the daddy is the doctor. So I'm trying to get this coin, which way can I go? And so I feel like tech was never in my mind. It was never even surrounding me. I don't know anyone that worked in any type of technology at all. Like, even playing around with websites the way people do now, and like, it just was completely out of my realm. And so I go to college, and I feel, and honestly, even in college, there were people who studied computer science and different things at Xavier, but they were like in a whole different building. So I'm not meeting them until now. Like, I haven't met them until now after college. I'm like, oh wow, you were there? Like, I was in our sciences building doing my thing, y'all were over there. So I studied biology pre-med. While I was in school, I worked, and I partied, right? And so I really did not do a lot of extracurriculars, academic extracurriculars, being so honest. I did not do a lot of research. I didn't take MCAT prep classes, anything to really prepare myself for medical school or even to be a good applicant for medical school. So when I graduated, I moved back home to Nashville and I spent some time trying to plan out, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to prep for this MCAT, or I'm going to go to some type of post-bac program, graduate program to prepare for medical school. Issues arose with the post-bac programs because they don't take the same financial aid. Things got really weird with that. And so I was considering doing graduate schools, but in the meantime, I needed some coin. I needed to make my own money. I wanted to, you know, do my own thing. We're out of college. So of course, your first couple of months out of college, you're just relieved and you want to party, you want to hang out with your friends that you haven't seen because they've left their colleges, coming back home. So my first, okay, I'm looking at my notes. My first round of like just difficulties and obstacles I was facing was looking for some type of work. And so Vanderbilt in Nashville is like our medical mecca, right? Like everyone wants to work at Vanderbilt. And so when I first got back, I was like, okay, I'm gonna work at Vanderbilt in research. That's gonna help me boost my application. And so I interviewed tons of places at Vanderbilt. I mean, there were times where at night I would just literally, I put in, you do one application. I completed one application and then I would just select all after I would filter down to the word research, and I just applied to everything. And so I was going to interview after interview after interview and I wasn't landing anything. So I was just so bummed. And my parents, in their subdivision area, they were building new homes. A new builder had come into the area and they were needing someone to work in the model house. And so I actually landed a job assisting the real estate agent in basically shadowing, like watching the house sitting. I did that for like two days out of the week, Mondays and Tuesdays. And then the other days of the week, I landed a job at Walgreens where I was a pharmacy tech. And so I felt like as a pharmacy tech, I was doing some kind of medical, you know, I was doing something. Like I was learning a lot about the different drugs. I took my pharmacy tech certification course. Like I felt like I was really doing well in that, and that was something that still would have helped my application for medical school. So I still was staying encouraged, but of course, as you continue on, like the job is very retail like, and it just started more and more feeling like this is not my goal, this is not where I want to be. I started getting uncomfortable. It was time for me to move. So I was offered a full-time position at the model house, but that still didn't feel really in line with my goals. Of course, yeah, it would give me a quiet place where I could study for MCAT, but I just really wanted to get out of all of that and get into a research environment. So I moved over to working at St. Thomas Hospital, another hospital here in Nashville, and I worked in a pathology lab, a pathology tissue lab, where we were looking through different skin biopsies, punches, different things to look for skin cancer ultimately. And so I worked there for a while, met some great people. At that time, I actually took a couple of courses at a local community college in anatomy and physiology. I retook like some biology courses, all the stuff, and I was paying for that out of pocket when I was doing that. And so I still worked there for a while, but it's, you know, it was a lab where when you're in a lab setting, you're in there like it's just you know, it's you and the specimens, that's it. And so once I felt like I got enough out of it to really get a solid recommendation from the people and really put that under my belt, I wanted to get back in an environment where I was working with people. And so I was like, I don't like just being stuck in this lab all day and it's quiet. Like we barely even had windows to look out. Like it was like jail almost. Not to say jail, but it was really closed in. And so I eventually started applying back to Vanderbilt, and I was just like hardcore applying to different places. Ultimately, I wanted to get in something with people. I wanted to get back in just meeting different people, seeing different people, being in that environment. And so still thinking about medical school, still thinking about that, I applied back to Vanderbilt again, and I landed a job surveying different patients about their hospital experience. And looking back, this is my first real kind of data related role where not even intentionally, but it kind of just, I just went down that way because it still meshed with medical. I was still in a hospital setting. I was still walking, you know, side by side with different doctors, and I'm going to the ER, I'm going to the burn unit, I'm going to the birthing center, I'm going everywhere. So it was a great experience for me to just really learn the inner workings of a hospital. Like I walked around the hospital all day talking to different patients as they were being discharged and just getting insights on their opinions about the hospital, literally about everything about the hospital. And so I would take that data then, which is qualitative data that I'm bringing in. I would put it in our computer, and there were ways that we would quantify it. We were primarily using Excel back then. And so using Excel, but in my head, I'm still thinking like this is some patient related information. This is medical. It wasn't until later when I started like applying to tech roles that I saw how connected it really was. But I was using Excel. I was creating data visualizations. I was creating different reports for my department and for hospital leadership, which ultimately these surveys, along with this outside vendor, they collected some surveys as well when they contacted people over the phone, like after they left the hospital. All that data is used to ultimately help the hospital get money, basically. Like they use that when they pitch for their funders and grants and whatever they do. And so it was just very important role, but totally at that time, I mean, this is like around 2016, I want to say. So I'm just like, honey, let me move, you know. I'm still you know, thinking about this medical journey. I'm still thinking about just getting my coin, you know, that type of thing where you just clocking in, clocking out, I'm out, I'm gone, bye. And so it wasn't until later that I really saw how all this connected. But ultimately at that role, I had what I'm later reading on right now about a queen bee complex, where you work with a woman who just has a very aggressive like personality. She wants to be the only woman there, and she puts down other women. It was terrible. It was a very toxic environment. And so I was so blessed to be able to leave. I landed a job at Vanderbilt's Institution for Clinical and Translational Research, Victor, and there most of our efforts are in genetic research. This job did not require me to move around the hospital as much. It was sit at your desk. It was very office like. We had the opportunity to work remote when we wanted to, so I loved it. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. I actually stayed there for like 4 years because I was like, this is cool. Like what's the problem? We traveled to the NIH in DC. I traveled to Seattle and tons of different cities, helping them with different conferences for people to display their research, for us to move the research further. But ultimately a lot of the role was centered in administrative when I first started. It was a very administrative heavy role, even more than they had told me when I applied. And at this time, by then, I'm pretty sure like I hadn't applied to anything. I was done looking at medical stuff. I was just more so trying to think of other things to do, I kind of feel like, or I may have just been in this kind of weird area where I wasn't thinking of anything. But that's kind of where I was when I first started there. But along the way, I started working alongside a lot of different data scientists and statisticians, bioinformaticians, and I really was like, okay, this is really cool. And I started to tell my manager that I was interested in working in data, and I was given different data related projects. I worked with a lot of outcomes data, looking at what patients do after they receive a type of genetic mutation. So it was really cool and a really good experience for me to start looking at data and seeing it as a possible career choice for me. And so later on in 2018, I started really searching like data science. Like, what is data science? What do they do? What do they major in? I would even find other people that I worked with. I would look at their signatures and look up different places that they went to school. I would look at their LinkedIn. I would search them on Google. I was just doing tons of searching to see what these people actually specialized in and what got them to where they are. A lot of them were actual doctors that later on studied data science, but there were some people that had PhDs and masters. So I'm like, okay, let me look into this and see what this is about. And so I was given a scholarship by Google to study data science, and it was a self-paced type of program. Like, all of the modules were there and you kind of just guided yourself through, and it was a little difficult for me to keep up because you know, just life happens, and when you don't have a set schedule, it's just easy to kind of throw it up in the air. But I was getting introduced to a lot of higher level statistics that I really knew. I think that's how the program really started off. Before we did any coding, it was a lot of heavy in statistics and data visualizations and interpreting data and all of that. But I later on decided to go to graduate school in statistics. And before I started the grad school program, I can't even remember how it came across my page or my browser or something, but Nashville Software School came across my view, my path, and they were accepting enrollment. But I want to say, like, the day I looked at it, it was like past their deadline, or I was like right there. And so I went ahead and submitted it, and then I applied for a scholarship, and the rest is history. I did the 9-month program and the data science program. We learned Python, R, SQL, Tableau, Power BI, different things. And after I finished the program May 2020, so COVID did interfere with a lot of our program, and we ultimately finished remote. We were all on Zoom, and that did have a big impact on us with our learning. And I felt like a lot of the end of the program was kind of a blur because of that. But that happened, and then I had this whole summer where I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Because at work, I felt that now my job is remote. So of course, when we first went remote, like, we were chilling. Like, we were like, okay, this is a breeze. This is not bad at all. Like, of course, COVID is going on outside, which everyone is like terrified of and all of that. But inside, working remote, it definitely made my job seem a lot better than it was. And I was okay with it. And I was like, I can stay here for a while. And that's when I started thinking about enrolling into graduate school again. And so I started telling myself, I shouldn't apply for a tech job right now because I'm going to be in school. That's going to be stressful to onboard to a new job while you're in school, and imposter syndrome. Basically, I was talking myself out of it, saying I wasn't ready, saying I wasn't qualified enough. All of this before I even tried, before anyone even denied me on an application. I just talked myself out of it, of even applying. And so that's like the biggest thief of joy, is just really having this imposter syndrome. It's the devil really talking you out of reaching your full potential. And so you can't let that get to you. And so what I did instead was I started working with a lot of different nonprofits that, honestly, they all reached out to me. I didn't apply to any of them. They all had different grants related to COVID, and they needed help with their data analysis, collecting data, different things with data. And so I spent my summer and my fall and winter, I guess all of the rest of the year last year, from June to December, working with different nonprofits that reached out to me that I had already had experience volunteering with. And they were like, hey, we're offering you a paid position in helping us with this data analysis. And so that was a blessing. And I was given I mean, the pay was amazing for contract work. And that's when I even launched my own consulting business, because I really just enjoyed the flexibility of consulting and doing data projects for different organizations that I'm really passionate about. And so that's another thing that I would mention. A thing that really attracted me to data analysis was also the ability to work in so many different fields, so many different spectrums. And so, like I mentioned earlier on, even when it came down to medical versus law, I was never 100% sold on one or the other. And so now I feel with data, I've helped with different social justice projects. I've helped with different medical projects. I'm helping with education projects. I've helped with tech disparities, health disparities, COVID-19 relief, being dispersed out to our community. I've worked with so many amazing projects, and so I just feel like that gives me the ability to dibble and dabble in all these different specialties and fields that I'm interested in. So I really love that about data. But back to what I was talking about. I started working with a lot of different side projects and things, and ultimately while I was doing that, my 9 to 5 at Vanderbilt was getting pretty stressful because people were leaving due to COVID or due to whatever other reasons they were leaving. And so finally one day I just must have gotten ticked off enough where I was like, I'm gonna go apply somewhere else. And so I applied to 50 jobs, and out of those 50 I got hired to one. I finally, after you accept one, then some other people start contacting you, but I got hired to my first tech role, official tech role. And in this role I am a business intelligence analyst, data analyst, quantitative analyst, and I work with Power BI, Python, SQL very heavily, and I love my team. But I am the only black woman that I have found on my team, and so that's why it's so important for me to really give this tech content, this tech tea out to all of y'all, because I really am passionate about getting more black women into tech. You don't have to get into data if you don't want to, but you should. But if you don't want to get into data, there are tons of fields in tech that are technical, and there are some that are not technical. But I'm really pushing for y'all to get into those technical roles, because there is just not enough of us there, and that just increases bias, because if the people making it all look a certain way, then the output's going to be all a certain way. And so that's why I really am passionate about getting y'all in there. But this is my journey, and if y'all have any questions about anything that I just told y'all, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear, and I promise that I'm going to start launching more tech content on Tuesdays, so be sure to click that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of this tea. Okay, so thank y'all so much for watching. Until next time, bye.